everybody, and welcome to another Findmypast Fridays Live. Hey, my name is Liam from the social media team here at Findmypast, and as always, it is my pleasure to be here with you on another Friday afternoon to talk about the new records that we've added. A lot of good Irish stuff going on this week. It is, of course, St. Patrick's Day this weekend, so guess the theme there. And yeah, we'll have a special guest joining us later in the session as well. So as always, let us know in the comments where you are tuning in from. Let us know that you can hear me. I had a few audio issues when I was getting set up today. So hopefully they are all resolved and everybody can hear me and they don't continue when we have our special guest joining us later on in the session. So who have we got? We have got Andrea from a rainy Stoke-on-Trent. It's been very rainy in Dundee today as well, actually, kind of over the past few days as well. I think not great weather, and I think it's kind of taken its toll on us. I know I've been ill. Ellie's been ill this week as well. I know a few of my colleagues in customer service are ill as well. So yeah, a lot going on. I think this weather isn't doing us any favors, and it seems to be much and such the same everywhere as well. Andrew in overcast Lancashire, even in Massachusetts, it is chilly and rainy over there. A sunny South London. London always seems to get the sun. I was talking to Rose, who you all know, one of our hosting teams, part of the hosting team here at Fridays Live, yesterday, and she was saying that she was enjoying the sunshine. I think she said it was about 16 degrees, I think she said, which was more than double it was in Dundee. So very jealous of anyone enjoying the sun down in London. But as I say, everybody else seems to be kind of much and such the same as Dundee. Grey. We've had quite a lot of rain. So yeah, a lot of people, as I say, feeling the same as well. Devon, only raining when I hang the washing on the line. Just typical Jenny. You take that punt, you put the washing on the line, and what do you know? It starts raining more or less immediately afterwards as well. So it's the risk you take. It's still close horse weather, I would say, in Dundee. I'm not chancing hanging the washing outside just yet. Rosie is here, but she has no sound. Hopefully, as I say, if people can't hear me, that'd be nice to let me know that you can hear me. If it is just yourself, Rosie, having issues, maybe give it a quick refresh. We are over on YouTube as well. You can still get involved in the comments on YouTube too. So if you don't have any luck with Facebook, feel free to join us on YouTube. We've got Jennifer over on YouTube as well from a sunny Northamptonshire. And rain in Edinburgh, Heather Shane. So yeah, Ellie will be with us later on. That is the special guest, spoiler alert. So she will be having the rain as well, I'm sure, with Heather too. So everybody seems to be hearing me okay. So maybe just Rosie's headphones are playing up. So hopefully you get those issues resolved there, Rosie. As I say, hopefully you get them resolved. It is, of course, recorded as well. So if you don't manage to get it fixed in time, it will be available to watch back on YouTube and on Facebook just after the session ends, about 5 o'clock or so. But as I say, hopefully you get the issues resolved. What have we got? So, as I say, it is Friday, the 15th of March, which, as I teased last week, not only means it is my birthday tomorrow, the big 3-0, it also means that it is St. Patrick's Day weekend as well. The 17th of March, Sunday, will be St. Patrick's Day. So, as I say, we have quite an Irish heavy session today. We're going to talk about new Irish records. We're going to talk about Irish research. And so I thought I'd get you involved in the conversation, and you can let us know about your own Irish research as well. So if you do have Irish research, how have you been finding your research in Irish ancestors? I know a lot of people do always say that Irish research is tricky. Hopefully some of the tips and the conversations we have later will help with that if you are having issues. But yeah, how have you found it? Do you find it tricky? Have you had any particular successes, any good stories from your Irish research you would like to share as well? As I said, let us know all things Irish ancestors this St. Patrick's Day weekend, and we can come and have a chat, as I say, whether you've got challenges, whether you have any tips of your own, or as I say, any cool stories that have come out of your Irish research. Let us know in the comments, and we can come back and discuss later on in the session. So we've got a few similar birthdays coming up this weekend as well. Andrew's mum was born on St. Patrick's Day, 1928. The midwife was Irish, so mum got an Irish name, which cold callers from South Asia can't pronounce. So nice. I wonder what the Irish name is. I know some of them can be quite tricky. I know there's a few actors and actresses at the moment that have been enjoying watching the interviews from the Oscars, for example, when they are correcting the pronunciation of their name. I know Cillian Murphy has been called Cillian in a few occasions that I've seen, which, as I say, I'm sure is frustrating, but always makes for a nice, awkward, quite funny watch when you're watching the interviews. And Karen's birthday was also on Wednesday 13th, so very happy birthday to yourself as well, Karen. Hope you had a good day, and what better way to finish off your birthday week than by spending it with us on Fridays live today. But as I say, hope you had a fantastic day, and thank you everyone for the wishes for tomorrow for myself as well. So, new records, what have we got this week? As I say, we have got 3 new editions this week, all Irish editions, all quite early ones as well, and quite helpful ones too. In that regard, as I say, we are going to speak more about Irish research, and time is a factor when it comes to Irish research. So I think these 3 new editions will prove to be quite handy if you have Irish ancestors and you're struggling to go that little bit further back. So, first of all, the first new edition is the Ireland 1766 religious census. So, as I say, nice early one, 1766, especially for a census type record. We all know censuses in Ireland prove to be quite tricky because there isn't really anything earlier than the 20th century. So, 1766 is a really good stretch back. So, this 1766 religious census has over 20,000 transcriptions. So although the actual original documents themselves were lost in the Public Records Office fire in Ireland in 1922, which again, I'm sure we will come back to later on in the session, the transcriptions themselves were actually saved and recorded by and I can't say the word, someone that deals with antiques, antiquarian, and I'm not sure, and genealogist Tennyson Groves prior to the fire. So they were all recorded, although the originals themselves were lost. And information-wise, what you can expect to find from this record set is actually quite similar to what you'd expect from a modern-day census, although maybe a little bit lighter. You will get the name of the head of the household, the year, of course, that the record was taken, 1766, the religion of the person. It is, of course, a religious census, so you will get the religion of the head of the household, and therefore implied the rest of the household, and also the parish and county in which the person or household was located. So as I say, some really good information when you think going back to 1766. That is pretty good going if you got back as far as that in Irish research already. So as I say, that could be a handy one to even take you as far back as that if you aren't there already. And the second new record set is also a nice early one as well. As I say, they're all quite early ones. This one goes back a little bit further even. We have the Census of Protestant Householders from 1740. So as I say, a really nice early record set as far as anything goes, but especially in Ireland. And these are transcriptions of a census that was taken of Protestant householders in 1740. There are just shy of 16,000 records in this brand new record set, and they come from the parishes in the counties of Antrim, Armagh, Derry, Donegal, Down, and Tyrone. So they are all kind of located in the north of Ireland, although Donegal is part of the Republic. It is the furthest north county in the Republic, might even be the furthest north in Ireland as a whole, up that area. But as I say, yeah, most of Northern Ireland and Donegal as well. I always remember, I just thought about this when I was looking through the notes earlier. I remember a while ago that someone, I think it was online on Twitter or something, and someone had said how to remember the counties of Northern Ireland, and the acronym is FATDAD. So it's Fermanagh, Armagh, Tyrone, Derry, Antrim, Down. FATDAD is the acronym. I always find that quite funny, and a good way of remembering things as well. So if you do have any issues remembering which counties are in the north, just remember FATDAD. I think that's, as I say, one of my favorite acronyms, I think, especially when it comes to that. So these records were also created by the same person as before, Tennyson Groves, and the transcriptions have information like the person's name, of course, the barony, parish, and county as well. And that is something that we will speak about earlier, because barony is something you do see on Irish records quite a lot, as well as parish, county, townland, etc. And rounding out the new additions for this week, we have got the Ireland 1775 dissenters petitions. So again, a nice early record set for Ireland. This record set has about 4,000 names in it, and they are names of people who protested the Church of Ireland's sacramental tests in 1775. And on the record, you will get the person's name, and the records themselves are categorized by things like I just mentioned there: parish, the congregation they belong to, the town, neighborhood, and also barony. You'll see that on a couple records, not very many, but a couple records will also include the barony as well. So, as I say, 3 really nice record sets for Ireland this week. Hopefully, those are the ones which unlock the key to get you that little bit further back. I think that's probably about where I am in my Irish research. I think kind of early 1800s, maybe just into the 1700s on some lines. So I will definitely be having a look at these records on St. Patrick's Day weekend. And yes, seeing as I say, if they hold the information I need to go that little bit further back. So those are the 3 new record sets, but we also have newspapers and publications added this week as well. So we have added new Belfast and Ulster directories, and we have 1 brand new newspaper title in the Brick House Echo that is from West Yorkshire. So a nice West Yorkshire. I feel like Yorkshire gets, can't remember a week where Yorkshire hasn't seen an update in some week, whether it's new records or newspapers. Quite nice to Yorkshire. As I say, if you've got Yorkshire ancestors, definitely one to keep an eye on in the new records blog and email, because as I say, always seem to mention Yorkshire in every Friday's live I do, because they are always getting updates to different records, which is always nice to see. And we also have a massive long list of updated titles as well. 57, in fact, 57 brand new titles added to the website this week. Brand new pages added to the website this week for existing titles. There's a whole host of titles that have been updated. I'm not going to run through the full 57. Have a look on the blog for the full breakdown of that. But you've got things like the north of Scotland is quite well represented. We've got a couple Banffshire, Huntly, Fraserburgh titles, and there are also some Irish newspapers being updated as well. Not just the new records they're seeing, also some new newspaper titles, some new newspaper pages. We've got the Evening Irish Times, the Irish Weekly, and Ulster Examiner all seeing updates as part of, as I say, those 57 brand new pages, 57 titles. I'm really struggling with this today. 57 titles being updated. So as I say, check out the blog for a full list and full breakdown of what you can expect to see in the updates this week. And that rounds off our new records and newspapers for the week. As I say, some good Irish ones there. If you do have Irish ancestors, as I'm sure a lot of you do, then you can definitely check those out. I will be doing that this weekend for sure. So let's have a look at the comments and see what we have there. Andrew has tried to help with the pronunciation of this word, but I'm just not going to attempt it. He's even correcting himself. Carrion. I'm going to have to Google this. You know when you Google a word and then you get the little thing that comes up on Google where you can press it and the person says it out loud? I do that quite a lot, but this one kind of snuck up on me. I wasn't aware it was in the notes, so I will need to have a look and see how to say that. But I appreciate you trying to help out anyway, Matthew. As I say, I will report back to you on that one. And speaking of words I cannot pronounce, I am assuming it is happy birthday messages that I am getting in Welsh by the looks of things. I think I saw one in Irish further up there as well. We also have a happy St. Patrick's Day in Irish from Kathleen as well. But as I say, I will not be embarrassing myself further. I've already made a mess of one word, so I don't want to cause any offence by butchering the Irish language or indeed the Welsh language either. But I appreciate the happy birthday wishes, as I say, and also the happy St. Patrick's Day wishes as well. Let's have a look. So we do have a question of the week. As I say, it was an Irish themed question, of course, as the more or less whole session is going to be Irish themed this week. So it was, how have you found researching Irish ancestors? As I mentioned at the start, if you have any challenges you struggled with, any tips that you found that might help others and myself as well, unlock their Irish ancestors, or indeed any cool stories about your Irish ancestors that you have found in your research, let us know in the comments. And we do have quite a few comments in already, so we will have a little run through the ones so far. Let's have a look. So Janet saying no Irish ancestors, but a family surname is Quarry. Lots of Irish there, so maybe a connection. I think that's quite a common thing in family history research when you have a surname, whether it is an Irish surname or a Welsh surname, an English surname, Scottish surname, whatever it might be, that you found the surname, you know that is very popular in a certain location, but maybe haven't found a link. But I should say very likely that going back far enough, there will be that link to the surname. And Quarry is a new surname for me, I will admit. I haven't seen that one before. Let's have a look. Who else have we got? Rosie stuck in about 1840. As I say, that is probably just slightly later than I am as well, Rosie. That is, I think, also quite a common period for people to start finding blockages in 1840. But you are in Kerry, so my great grandmother was from Kerry. My great grandfather was from Donegal, but my great grandmother was from Kerry. So I have done quite a lot of research in Kerry myself as well. And yet, agree that the baptisms and the petty sessions records were very useful too. Really good record sets, especially the petty sessions one. A one I think I will be mentioned later on because, yeah, maybe one that not many people have used, not one that you would initially think of, but I found some great stuff in there myself as well. So glad to hear you have been finding some success there. Let's have a look. We've got Sue Moon. Mother was Irish, but her grandfather was Scots. The research has not been too bad, but some patchy bits. The biggest mystery is my two times great grandmother, who had my grandmother in the North Dublin workhouse, but we have no idea where she was from, and DNA has not helped either. So, yeah, that is a tricky one as well in Ireland, I think, knowing where people are from and knowing you have an Irish ancestor but then knowing where in Ireland they're from is always a kind of tricky one as well. I think going back to what we said about the surnames earlier as well, if you do find an ancestor who you know is Irish but you're not sure where, quite a lot of surnames in Ireland are quite localized. My surname, for example, is very popular in Donegal. I think most people with my surname have roots in Donegal. So sometimes it's worth having a look and seeing if there are sort of any local areas that particular surname is from or is very popular in. I think that's a good indicator and then gives you something to work with as well. But of course, we know, much like any country, there are surnames which are just popular around the board. And if you do have something like O'Reilly, for example, in Ireland, is going to be quite hard to pinpoint exactly where the surname comes from. Who else do we have? We have got Andrew was extremely lucky with my three times great grandfather. He appears in only two censuses, both times with his place of birth written. In 1851 was taken in 3 weeks while he was in Chatham before being shipped off to India. His RC baptism is online. That is really lucky, having two censuses and the place of birth written in both as well. What we're saying there about knowing where someone in Ireland is from can be tricky. So having that on the census and two censuses, especially the only two that he came from, that he's recorded in, having where he came from in there is, yeah, as you say, really lucky and a really good find. You have to thank the people who filled out these censuses sometimes. And we've got more luck. I think luck of the Irish, I know, is a stereotypical phrase, but it does apply when you're doing family history in Ireland. Sometimes all you need is just that little bit of luck to break down that brick wall. And Jennifer was also quite lucky to find her great-great-grandparents in the Irish nonconformist records. Another good record set as well, a one that maybe people stick to the kind of Catholic baptisms, the parish records, for example. But yeah, the nonconformist records are also full of really good information, very similar. Who else do we have? We have got Lynn saying, I've only found a transcription of Richard Rennick and Christiana Medill in January 1831. I've also found the baptism transcription for each of the children, except for my two times great-grandfather. It looks like they immigrated to Glasgow during the potato famine from Clones Parish in Monaghan. So yeah, immigration is also a big recurring theme when it comes to Irish research as well. I know Irish travelled far and wide, especially like say Glasgow, big Irish area, all over Scotland, all over England, America, of course, as well. So yeah, as I say, immigration is a common theme when it comes to doing Irish research as well. So definitely not alone there. As I say, my family were Irish and came to the north of Scotland. So yeah. What else? I would be amiss if I went through a whole Irish session and did not talk about the dog licenses. On my very first appearance on Fridays Live, when I was with Jen and my colleague Jamie from the customer service team at the time, Jen asked what my favorite record set on the website was, and I think I did say it was the dog licenses. So as I say, I would be amiss if I made it through this whole session without calling out the dog licenses, because yeah, fantastic record set. It's something a little bit different as well, seeing your ancestor listed in the dog licenses, knowing the breed of dog that they had, for example, is something quite special, especially if you are a dog person or a dog owner yourself. I think it's always a nice thing to find. And as I say, a little callback to my very, very first appearance on Fridays Live all those years ago. Matthew having sound issues. Hopefully you managed to get those resolved, Matthew. But as I say, it will be available for watchback. So if you do need to do so, you can catch up with us later. And also feel free to keep leaving comments when you do watch it back as well. We will still be able to read those. So do let us know how you get on. Keep doing the there. Gillian, I really like this one as well. Gillian is still trying to track down some of her Irish ancestors, but reading up on what their lives would have been like. Also reading up on what myths, legends, and superstitions they believed in as well. I think that's really cool. And yeah, it gives you a sort of a different angle on the research as well. I think it's really important to have that kind of social history aspect of your research, that context, historical context. So as you see, the myths and legends and superstitions, Ireland is of course quite well known for its myths and legends and also superstitions. So I'm sure you found some really interesting stuff in there, and I'd say a really interesting angle to do it from as well. And Matthew may have had to jump off, but he has answered the question of the week before he left us. He has been trying to work out where my Irish ancestors were born for years. Both myself and Dad thought it was grandmother Elizabeth Sullivan was born in Ireland, but I can't find her. On the other hand, I know from the census that 3 great-grandparents, John Donovan and Catherine Flynn, were born in Cork, but no idea where. Dad recently did a DNA test which came up 1% Irish, so very confusing. That is a very low percentage indeed. I know some people have had a few random 1%, but knowing that you are Irish, especially with a surname like Donovan yourself, Matthew Donovan as a whole, very Irish name in fact. So being only 1% coming back on the DNA test is, yeah, as you say, very confusing, that one there. We do have Ellie joining us in the comments, and as I say, she will be gracing us with her presence on the stream as well very shortly too. As Ellie says, we were working on a big cross-company project this afternoon, a nice end to the week. Sadly, I did have to jump off a little bit early, but what better way to have spent my Friday afternoon than with you all on Fridays Live. Ellie saying, depends how nice you are to me. It's my birthday weekend, Ellie, so I think I will put the shoe on the other foot, and it depends how nice you are to me, in fact, I think. Have a look, and we'll do some couple more question of the weeks, and then we can get Ellie on if I am nice to her, as she says. What have we got? We've got Heather's husband's ancestors moved from County Clare to Sheffield during the 1840s, but I don't know how to find which particular village they originated from. They were Cunningham's, Lyons, and Callahan. Cunningham, I think, it's a name I would tend to associate with the kind of Northern Ireland more than anything, I think. But then Lyons and Callahan are obviously quite popular surnames in Ireland as well, so they might be quite tricky to trace down. But yeah, Sheffield is an interesting one. I always find it interesting which kind of pockets of the UK have these big Irish communities. And yeah, Sheffield's not one that has come up before, so very nice. Good stuff. So if our special guest is ready, we can pop her on and everybody can say hello to Ellie.
Hiya,
How are
how's
you?
everyone?
I forgot to put my headphones in there, so I couldn't even hear you.
I'm hoping my headphones are behaving today because they did not behave the other week.
I was saying that at the start of the session there. I was very panicking trying to get my audio settings set up. I got 2 sets of headphones and I couldn't get either of them to work. And I know last time I had a guest and didn't have headphones, it was just an echo. And then I was panicking, and then I joined and 2 different people said they were having audio issues and I thought it was me. And yeah, it was a big panic, but we made it.
It's all good. Hope everybody's well. Hope you've all had a good week. I am ready for a rest, I think, this weekend. Although I've got family friends visiting, so I don't know if that's actually going to happen. But we love seeing people. We love seeing people.
I know I
Yeah.
was saying that we've
How's
both been
everybody's
under the
week
weather this week.
been?
I was saying that at the start that we've both been under the weather this week, so it's been
Yeah.
a bit of a struggle, and I know other people in the company have as well. I was saying, so it's been doing the rounds, but we have made it. As I say, we have made it.
Yes, absolutely. So what's the plan, Liam? What are we talking about?
Well, it may come as no surprise, but it is St. Patrick's Day weekend on Sunday, of course, the 17th of March. So we're having a big Irish special today. I thought we'd do a round off the week, see us into St. Patrick's weekend with some Irish research. We've had some great question of the week answers, some great new Irish records this week as well. So yeah, we're thought we'd get you on and we can talk all
Excellent.
things Ireland.
Do you know what? This is perfectly timed because I was literally just thinking a couple of days ago that I do have an Irish branch, but like I am utterly stumped. So maybe I could ask you some questions, and maybe you could help me and help everybody else at the same time.
I can certainly try my best. I do remember your Irish branch. I remember when we both worked in customer service, we had that moment where we thought that we maybe had an ancestor in common all those years back, but sadly no dice.
Yeah, I've not revisited that line for a while. But basically, with is it my McKenna's? I think one McKenna at some point might have married a Boyle, but I don't know. I can't be certain, basically.
I don't know. That was funny when, as I say, we were both in the office all those years ago, and you were like, "Do you have ancestors from this place? Because I think one of mine might be married one of yours." But as I say,
Yeah.
sadly not.
Yeah, we'd have to really knuckle down if we wanted to prove that, I think.
We'll need to compare DNA results, see if we're a very distant match somewhere in amongst them.
Absolutely. So yeah, can I ask you some questions? Would that
Go
be
for it. As I
okay?
say, I will certainly try my best.
Yeah, and if anybody else has got like questions about Irish family history research, Liam's really really good person to ask. So like pop them in the comments and I will ask them on your behalf. But I suppose I'll kick it off, I suppose. So you've got probably more Irish ancestors than me. So where did you start? Where did you kick all of that off?
Yeah, so when I started with Findmypast, I think I've said before that that was the start of my family history journey, was getting the job at this lovely company and kicking off my research that way. That was not too long after a certain referendum, which made certain passports quite valuable, shall we say. So my dad was in the market for an Irish passport. So when he knew I'd got this job and started working for a family history company, he wanted the kind of documentation in place so he could apply for his Irish passport. So that was the first ever research I did on Find My Past or in any family history capacity, was the Irish side of things to get my dad's passport. So that was finding his grandparents, their births, their marriages, their deaths, getting the certificates ordered. And then through that, so we had all that. Dad sent the application off and had mentioned to his dad, my granddad, who is Irish, of course, about that this is what we had been doing. And then granddad mentioned that he didn't know his granddad's name. So it had all the documentation for dad's Irish passport, had up to that generation. And then it was a case of going that one generation further back so that I could tell my granddad what his granddad's name was. And then that's kind of just where I kind of caught the bug for it. I started because we, in where we're from in Ireland, Donegal, known as the Mickey Neils, because an Irish naming pattern is Michael Neil, like through the generations. So the Mickey Neils is that side of the family. So that's when I kind of started noticing that like my granddad's name is Michael, his dad's name is Neil, his dad's name is Michael, and I was like, surprise, my
That's
granddad's
brilliant.
granddad's name was Neil. So that's kind of where I started identifying that, and I was like, I wonder kind of how far back this goes. Like if I keep going back, are they all going to be Mickey Neal's, and I'm pretty sure they are, funnily enough, going as far back as I've gone, on the maternal line, the Boyle line
That's
is,
mad.
yeah, Michael Neal, Michael Neal.
But I think that's that. I mean, I understand that if you know a little bit about like naming traditions, that will really help you. Obviously,
Hmm.
don't take it verbatim, take it like a pinch of salt. But if they were pretty predominant in your family, then that might help, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and like I say, just looking out for those patterns as well and seeing, then you start identifying what was the brother called, what was their uncle called, and just like you say, it's not hard and fast, but it definitely helps.
Yeah, and I'm sure many people watching will know that Irish family history research is widely considered to be a little bit trickier than, say, if you're researching English or Welsh ancestors, for example. Why is that? Why is there this understanding that Irish research can be harder?
Yes, I think, like you say, that is quite common. I know when I started doing it, I think everyone in the business I spoke to was like, "Oh, where's your family from?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm half Irish, half Scottish, basically." And they were like, "Oh, that's going to be fun." Like both those areas are hard to research, especially Ireland. So I was like kind of set up for failure at the start when I was like, "This is going to be impossible. I don't know a thing." But it's, as I say, it is a well held kind of a thing that people think Irish research is difficult, and it is difficult, and there are quite a few different reasons as to why it is difficult compared to English research. As an example, the main kind of thing is that, as Victoria said in the comment, was the censuses being destroyed, as well as a number of other records. In the War of Independence in 1922, there was a fire at the Records Office, which I mentioned earlier on in the session, which did sadly destroy a lot of the census records and other records as well. So in England and Scotland and Wales, for example, you can use censuses to go back to 1841. And there just isn't that in Ireland, unfortunately. Some kind of odd fragments survive, some scraps, but they're not the complete census records. And we all know that alongside your birth, marriage, and death records, censuses are really the kind of pillar of your family history research. Those are the core records, I think you would say, the birth, marriage, deaths, and the censuses, which, as everyone says, were sadly destroyed. And on the topic of the birth, marriage, and deaths as well, that is another thing that makes it a little bit trickier. In England and Wales, obviously, that started in 1837, so you can go all the way back to the 1830s using those records alone. And in Ireland, it was almost 30 years later, 1864, that the civil registration started. So we all love parish records. We know how good parish records are, but that kind of extra almost 30 years of civil registration does make English research a lot easier to find. Like, I don't have any a English family. It's all Irish and Scottish, as I say. But whenever I've been doing research for someone else and they're English, I just love how easy it is to be going through the civil birth, marriage, and deaths, getting the maiden names, finding the corresponding census all the way back to 1841. Like, they more or less go hand in hand at that point, those two record sets. So yeah, that was certainly when I got started, was the kind of hardest thing for me to face when it was, as I say, learning the record sets and the gaps that there are in Ireland compared to England and Wales as the kind of base example. So that is the probably where the myth starts. I know the fire especially is the one that everyone talks about.
Yeah, I mean, so my understanding from all of that then is it's hard, but hopefully not impossible. So, if anybody does have Irish roots, like I do, are there any particular tips or record collections that you would advise I go and check out? Maybe like top 3 tips and top 3 record collections? I don't know, maybe you've got more. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see what comes to mind. But yeah, record set wise, as I mentioned, the parish records are obviously there, much like when you're doing your English, your Scottish research. The parish records are there. Irish parish records are really good. You do still get that core information. So, although there is maybe that gap in the civil registration compared to England, the parish records are obviously still a core record set when it comes to doing your Irish family history. So, yeah, parish records are going to be your best friend. I learned quite quickly when it comes to doing Irish research. Those are the main kind of ones. Obviously, we've mentioned about the lack of census records as well. In the new records this week, I mentioned 2 record sets which are equivalent to censuses. Obviously, they go back to the 1700s, but even though there maybe aren't the kind of classic censuses, there are other record sets that you can use as sort of census substitutes, I would say. So combining a tip and a record set recommendation here. But as I say, census substitutes, you do have things like the Griffiths valuations, the court rentals, even the land commissions. When I was on last week, we just added new Ireland land commissions. So maybe, as I say, not as detailed as a census. You're maybe not getting place of birth and occupation and whatever else you might expect from like a normal census, but still knowing where the person was at that certain point. Even kind of extra things that you find from the land commissions compared to a census, knowing if they owned the land, how much they were paying in rent, how much they purchased the land for, you're still getting really good information. Although there aren't those censuses, there's those substitutes available, which do kind of fill that gap kind of thing. And then tip wise as well, we just spoke about naming patterns as well. That is quite common in Ireland, as we said, although, like you mentioned, definitely take it with a pinch of salt. Don't just, I could probably just have filled out my family tree, Michael Boyle, Neil Boyle, Michael Boyle, Neil Boyle. But like you say, at one point that's going to stop. It's not going to have been like that forever. So, and then I think also with the naming patterns, whilst it is definitely handy, like as soon as I go a generation back, I've got a kind of rough idea where to start because I know roughly what the name is. But then it's also easy to get kind of blindsided by that because if I'm looking for the parents of Michael Boyle and I find a parish baptism, the father's name is Neil, because I know that name and tradition, automatically in my head I'm thinking, well, it must be this one because that's the naming pattern. But like you said, it's not always that easy, unfortunately. But yeah, naming patterns are one to look out for with parents, with uncles, with brothers as well. There are also similar naming patterns for the daughters in the family as well. So have a look at what those might be. See if you are identifying any patterns in your own Irish lines as well. Noting down the names, even I found that quite handy when I was doing it. Is just a lot of the siblings were called similar things as well. So just noting down those names too. So when you are finding records, you're keeping an eye out for those names. As I say, you obviously still have to confirm it because, like we said, unfortunately, it's not always kind of 100% accurate. And then I think finally as well, something that we spoke about just before you joined with the myths and legends that someone was looking into as well. I think social history is a really big thing in Ireland as well, because Ireland as a country has such a kind of storied history, even over the last like 150 years, for example, like the historical events that happened there and everything, the changes that the country's seen in that time. I think having the kind of historical context about Ireland, obviously it's helpful for any area of research, but especially in Ireland, I think knowing what was going on in the country at the time, like the creation of Northern Ireland in the 20s, for example, things like that, having that kind of context really does help with your research and with that understanding as to what your ancestors were going through as well.
Somebody was telling me the other day, it might have been my husband, might have been on the news, I can't remember, that there's such a strong oral tradition for history in Ireland, and now Irish people are widely considered to be very good storytellers, and that's where that comes from, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah, like you say, that is something I haven't really thought about that. But yeah, people always do say that the Irish are really good storytellers. You think about all the poets and authors that came from Ireland as well, I suppose.
And I suppose we shouldn't forget Irish newspapers either, because they're a great way to fill in gaps left by traditional records that either don't exist or don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially like I say, filling in those gaps, even for the kind of social history side of things as well, like reading the newspapers all the time and seeing what was going on. But yeah, like you say, getting those announcements. I found some of my Irish ancestors in newspapers, and I think the old saying that family history is for everyone. I think when I started, I was like, all my Irish ancestors were agricultural labourers and in different parts of Ireland. So I was like, well, they're not really going to have done much to have been in the newspapers, but you'd be surprised. You never know what's going to come up in the newspapers, good and bad. I think I've told the story before about my 2 times great grandfather pouring a pint before licensing hours. And then that was obviously something quite funny to find. And then sadly, a few years later, the same guy was ran over and killed in a wagon accident, which was widely reported in the papers as well. So that, yeah, like you say, the extra detail you're getting from them for any Irish ancestor, whether they were part of the upper echelon or just agricultural labourers, as most people in Ireland seem to be when you're doing the research, they'll still be there.
The other thing that I've noticed as well, given the history, you may often find if your Irish ancestor served in the military, sort of late 19th, early 20th century, they will appear in like British military records for the obvious reasons. So don't discount looking at those either. I can't remember what it was. It was when we did the Savoy, and when we did the Heritage Open Days at the Savoy a few years ago, and I was finishing up a little bit of research around that, and I found an Irish person, an Irish soldier in British Army Service records. So don't discount those either, basically.
Yeah, I think, and it comes back for the third time that I've came back to this, but the social history and the historical context side of things as well. I think, like you say, knowing the kind of history of the country and knowing at what points in history they would be maybe in the British service records or when to start looking at the Irish military records. That is, like you say, don't be discounting the British records as well.
Yeah. So with all of this, very helpful advice, Liam. Thank you very much. I am probably going to go back to my Irish line and see if I can find myself an Irish passport. But I have a feeling that I don't think I would qualify for one because...
Do you not get a Welsh passport?
No, those don't exist. Sadly. But no, I think my closest Irish relation is... See, I don't even think my great-grandmother was born in Ireland. I think she was actually born in Lancashire, but shortly after the family moved from what is now Northern Ireland. So yeah, I don't think I would qualify for one, but fascinating all the same.
I'm one generation out because my granddad was born in Greenwich to Irish parents and then moved back to Ireland just after he was born. But because his birth is an English birth, and obviously my great-grandparents didn't foresee Brexit happening and didn't register him as an Irish born abroad. So he's just registered as an English birth. So I would kind of have to go even further into the research. I know when you see those queues at the airport, I'm like, darn it, if only they registered him as an Irish born abroad, I'd be flying through security now.
Yeah, quite. Shall we do a couple of questions? Can I ask you some more questions?
Yeah.
How is your Irish Latin, basically? Because they can, as Dave rightly says, they can be a bit hit and miss based on your knowledge. I mean, I've got a very basic level of Latin myself. I did it during my master's degree. I have since forgotten pretty much all of it. But I completely agree with you, Dave, like brushing up on some basic Latin terms. And of course, the variations when you get into sort of Irish Latin, like being aware of those as well. Liam, have you come across anything like that?
Yeah, like especially the parish records, a lot of the early parish records, you'll find that they are written entirely in Latin. So like say you do kind of start, I couldn't tell you what the words are off the top of my head, but when I look at the record, because I've seen so many of them, you do kind of start to kind of recognize what like what father's name is, what on this day is, and like you start identifying things like that. And it's a good point about the Latin as well, because obviously the actual text on the parish record is in Latin, but quite often the names are as well. So a lot of the parish baptism records I found from my ancestors, the name has been in Latin, or it'll be like a confirmation name or something like that, for example, that's in Latin. So it's another one to look out for, knowing if you're struggling to find a record of a parish baptism, for example, knowing what the Latin of that name would have been can be helpful as well, because Sometimes it's not too bad knowing what the name is in Latin, but there are some curveballs out there that I found. So knowing the Latin equivalent of the kind of Anglo-Saxon name that you're looking for is always handy as well.
I think Findmypast search does take into account Latin variations, but it never harms to try some other variations yourself, basically. Can anybody remember, thank you for your question, Victoria, Fiona's tip for, Fiona Fitzsimons we're talking about here, her tip for traditional Irish naming patterns. Can you recall it, Liam? Because I can't, I've got a memory like a sieve.
I can't. I'd had one noted down that I'd found online, but I'm not sure if it's Fiona's or not. But the one that I'd found was, as I say, mine doesn't follow this, so there probably are variations of it dependent on the family. But one that I'd found was that the eldest son would be named after the paternal grandfather, and then the second son would be named after the maternal grandfather. The third son would be named after his father, and then the fourth son would be named after his father's oldest brother. So that's one, but as I say, that's not what mine does. Mine's just Mickey Neal, as I say. So there will be variations of that. That is one. It might not be Fiona's one specifically, but yeah, there'll be variations out there.
Yeah. Should we do one more question and then I can leave you to finish up, maybe? So Mary's question, the land records only reflect the head of the house, no family members or other useful information such as ages, birth dates. Yes, this is very frustrating. Not always found the right person. So how can you be sure that that's your person, basically?
Yeah, I think, like you say, it is always difficult with those kind of land records. Even some of the records that we've added this week that I mentioned, that is only the head of the household that has been recorded. So it's really just a case of like using what you know about the location. There's so many variations of locations on Irish records. It's not like English records, for example, where it's going to be town or village, county or parish, and that's kind of it. There's so many different things that are kind of recorded in there as well. When it comes to like townlands, parishes, counties, baronies, all sorts of different things. So trying to know as much as you can about the location that your person was in. If you know the townland that they were in, or the barony that they were in, or the parish and things, as they trying to find as much of that information out as you can, and then kind of having to use that, because yeah, like you say, only having the head of the, like, imagine a census record. If you only had the head of the household, there was no partner, there was no children, there was no years of birth or whatever it might be recorded. So yeah, I think certainly my research location has been the thing that I've kind of used to try and identify those ones.
Cool. Thank you very much. I think I'll leave you to it. I'll probably go back to this cross-functional project that I'm supposed to be doing right now. So I'll go back to that for a bit. Liam, a very happy birthday for tomorrow. I hope you have
Thank you.
An amazing day. And to everybody watching, I hope you have a lovely St. Patrick's Day if you're celebrating, and a lovely weekend.
Thank you for taking time out of the big company project to join us as well, Ellie. Always a pleasure, and thank you for the birthday wishes. I will speak to you before we finish up, I'm sure. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Good stuff. So yeah, as I say, we did have a special guest, and it was, of course, Ellie. The best special guest. No offense to the other ones, but the best special guest. I'm only saying that because she's still in the call so she can hear me. So we'll wait until she leaves, and I'll tell you who my real favourite was. But yeah, that was a little Irish session there, just kind of talking about what I found in my Irish research. Hopefully that was helpful. As Ellie said, I know a little bit, but I'm definitely not an expert. So maybe we could try and get one of the actual experts on one day to do a full dedicated session, because I think we all need a little bit of help. And as we said, Irish research can be tricky. So definitely a one that we all need a little bit of help on. Have a little look through the comments and see what people have been saying whilst I was nattering away. Yeah, I really like this one from Rosie as well. The useful record set is the Ireland Military Pensions and Medals, 1916 to 1922. Yeah, that is a really good one. As you say, the dependents may be named on there as well. Yeah, I've also seen things like the address of the person of the dependent and of the person named in the records. So yeah, that is a really good one. A lot of good Irish military records, but yeah, that is especially a good one as well. And I think there is also a dedicated website for like the Irish Military Archive. So there's a lot of good records on there. Maybe get some further information from them too. So yeah, definitely a good one there. Let's have a look. Charlie asking about finding property transfers with names of lessors. So that's where you'd be looking at things like the records I mentioned earlier, the Griffiths valuations, the court rentals, land commissions. There's a lot of like property specific records when it comes to Ireland that will tell you things about buying properties, leasing properties, owning land. So yeah, there's a lot out there. So definitely have a look. It's in the same category as the censuses would be on the search page and Findmypast. So yeah, if you have a look, there should be some records out there which hopefully have some answers in there for you, Charlie. What else have we seen there? Good stuff. You just missed Ellie here, Jennifer, so I'm sure Ellie would have schooled me on the pronunciation of this if she was still with us. But I do appreciate the birthday wishes as well from your husband too. You'll need to pass my thanks on to him as well. That would be very, very kind of him as well. But as I say, not going to attempt the pronunciation. As I said, I'll ask Ellie after the call, and she can keep me up on that. What else have we got as well? Yeah, Dave raises a good point here as well. It wasn't St. Patrick or Romano-Britain from the coast of Wales. That's something I was actually looking up earlier. I do actually have some St. Patrick's facts that we can finish up on. We've got 8 minutes, so I can finish up with some Patrick's facts. So yeah, as Dave says, historians do kind of widely believe that St. Patrick himself was actually born in Britain. And then I'm not sure about Wales specifically. I've only found Britain, but that would be definitely very interesting if it was from the coast of Wales that he was from. So yeah, that is something that a lot of historians believe to be the case, that he wasn't actually born in Ireland, that he was born in Britain. And then I was reading about the fact that he was perhaps kidnapped and sold into slavery in Ireland when he was about 16 years old, I think. So yeah, a very good point from Dave that yeah, apparently he was British and then sent to Ireland at a young age, and obviously went on to become the patron saint over there. So yeah, a good one as well. And as I say, I've got some St. Patrick's facts that I forgot about until Dave mentioned that. So thank you for reminding me, Dave. We can run through some fun St. Patrick's facts to finish off the session and see us into the weekend. So we'll ask them as questions. We'll see if anybody knows the answers. We'll have to be quick because, as I say, we are running out of time here. But obviously, green is the colour that you would associate with St. Patrick's Day. But do you know what colour St. Patrick himself actually wore? And there is actually a dedicated hue of this colour called St. Patrick's blank as well. But as I say, green would obviously be the kind of colour that you associate it with now, but it was not the colour that St. Patrick himself wore. If anybody typing away knows the answer to what colour would kind of been historically associated with St. Patrick rather than green. It's not purple. Close. It's I actually saw that. I found this out because I saw an advert for 0% Guinness featuring the actress from Derry Girls, and it was mentioned in that advert, and I thought it was quite interesting, so I went and looked it up. And yeah, Victoria's got it is sky blue, St. Patrick's blue it would be called, which I find quite interesting because it's obviously green that you associate with St. Patrick, or with St. Patrick's Day specifically. With Ireland as a whole, I suppose green would be the colour, but it was actually blue. Don't actually need this. I keep adjusting that in my ear, and I don't actually need it in anymore. But yeah, blue would be the colour that St. Patrick wore as well. And when I was looking this up, I did actually find as well that there's also this kind of legend. I think it started in America that people wear green on St. Patrick's Day because apparently it made you invisible to leprechauns. So if you wore green, the leprechauns couldn't see you. And then if you weren't wearing green, they could obviously see you. And the legend goes that they would pinch you. So apparently, this is news to me, as I say, a lot of this was news to me, but news to me, apparently, if you're not wearing green on St. Patrick's Day, people will pinch you in kind of reference to this myth or this legend about the leprechauns pinching you. So although St. Patrick maybe wore blue, I wouldn't recommend wearing blue on St. Patrick's Day itself if you want to avoid being pinched. What else do I have on the St. Patrick's Day trivia stuff there? I did actually read, this isn't a question necessarily, but I did actually read that there were no snakes in Ireland. Obviously, the legend is that St. Patrick drove the snakes from Ireland. I feel like a lot of this is quite a buzzkill when you're reading about what historians find. Like, sometimes you just need to let us have something. But people were studying things like the fossil records in Ireland and found that there probably weren't actually any snakes in Ireland. Ireland is, of course, an island, and at one point in the Ice Age would have been completely covered in ice, and apparently it would have been too cold for snakes. So as I say, that was a bit of a buzzkill. I think sometimes historians and like fossil people need to kind of just let us have something, just let us live with that legend. But apparently that was a thing. And we'll finish up with a question. Does anybody know where the first St. Patrick's Day parade was held in America? Which city in America held the first St. Patrick's Day parade? If you know the year as well, I would be very impressed. You will get a bonus point for the year. I think in my head, I was kind of probably between three cities, I think, in my head when I thought about who would have had the first one. But so I read online that there is a correct answer if anybody knows where the first St. Patrick's Day parade was held in America. See, Andrew, you've fallen into the same trap I did, and Julie as well. I thought it would have been Boston. I was kind of between Boston, Chicago, because I know there's a lot of Irish in Chicago, and they do that whole thing where they dye the river green, or New York, as a lot of people are guessing. It was indeed New York was the correct answer. The first St. Patrick's Day parade held in New York, apparently in 1762, all the way back in 1762, it was the first St. Patrick's Day parade. I'm sure it was very different in 1762 than it is now with the kind of commercialization and the leprechauns and the shamrocks and everything. I'm sure it was a very different affair in 1762, but it was New York. As I say, Boston was the obvious one. Then I thought Chicago, but yeah, it was going to be one of the three, I think, but it was New York. So yeah, that rounds out my St. Patrick's Day trivia. As I say, for better or for worse, I was reminded that I had that saved. So thank you for the reminder. Nice way to finish up the session with all of that there. And yeah, I think we will let you all get on with your weekend. As Ellie says, if you are celebrating St. Patrick's Day, do have a good weekend. Don't drink too much on the Sunday. As I say, it's my birthday on Saturday, so I'll see what state I'm in on Sunday, if I'm fit for a St. Patrick's Day Guinness or not. But do have a good weekend if you are celebrating St. Patrick's Day, or of course, have a good weekend regardless, whatever you are getting up to. That has been 2 weeks running. I've been on Fridays live now, so you will be glad to hear you're all getting a break from me. It will not be me next week. Touch wood anyway. It might end up being me. We've done a lot of favors for each other recently, so you might end up being me. Don't be upset if you tune in next Friday and it is me again. But as I say, all being well, you'll get a change of scenery next week with a different person from the hosting team. But as I say, thank you all very much for your very kind birthday wishes as well. I will report back next week and let you all know how I'm getting on in my first week in my 30s. A very scary, scary thought. But as I say, thank you all for the kind words. Thank you all for tuning in today as well. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will speak to you all very soon.